Okay, so welcome one and all to our longer format studio live show based live here in Sean's lounge. Party on, Wayne.
Yeah, party on, Dan.
And the idea is that we're going to talk about sort of things more sort of general and studio life than we call it a flagship show. Is it...
The Turd Ship Show. Yeah.
Is
it
shit?
Yeah,
where we review plugins.
we do. Yeah. And this is the show where we just talk about general studio stuff and answer questions that we've been asked and talk about our careers and just go into other topics.
Oh,
really.
what?
Well, careers, you know. What we've been doing since we left school, Dan, in order to not get a
Not
proper
have a
job.
career, yeah.
Yeah. The avoidance of proper work that we refer to as our careers.
So welcome.
Welcome indeed. So we're going to start with some news. Last time we were talking about the fact that I'd blown up one of my Adam TZVs. Well, I didn't personally blow it up. My audience sound card decided to give up and send out a load of weird noise.
Is that not one just there?
They are right here. Yeah. Adam fixed them, and I now use them for my TV.
That was nice of him.
It was, yeah. Adam, nice company, fixed my stuff under warranty. Within a week, great stuff. But I did say at that point, if ever I get new monitors, which I was thinking about getting new monitors, I would get Adams because of that. I then completely did the opposite, and I've ended up buying some Dynaudio LYD 48s, or Lid 48s, although they don't like you calling them that.
Certainly.
Apparently not.
LYDs.
LYD 48s, which have been fantastic.
They do sound pretty good, I've got to say.
I've only had them about 2 weeks, and I'm pretty much in love with them. Do you know what? One of the first monitors I used for a length of time was the Dynaudio M1, which I think might have been their first or one of their first monitors years and years and years ago, back in 1990. And they were, I still remember the sound of them. And these are very similar. They're very harsh on you. They're not harsh. They're harsh on your mix. They absolutely, if there's a problem, you'll hear it.
But they sound very bass. They sound very rich.
They've got a lovely tone. Yeah, they've got a lot of bottom end. The top end's really smooth. It's quite interesting moving to them from the Adams. The Adams are, they've got a very pronounced top end. That ribbon tweeter is, it's nice, it's smooth, but it does make the top end sound maybe nicer than what it is. These are a little bit more realistic, I would say.
How much are the lids?
They're about £1,000 each.
Each pair, obviously.
No, each speaker.
Crikey.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
No.
But they're epic. They're three-way. I've been doing a lot of more important work on a more regular basis. So I just needed to get something that was a little more revealing.
Do you prefer three-way to two-way?
Do you know what? It's an interesting thing because with a two-way monitoring system, there is only one crossover point. So that's where the problem... I know what you're saying, Dan. He's such an old perv. But it is a good point, regardless of what you meant.
Okay, so two-way.
So a two-way system, there's one crossover point, obviously, between the low-frequency driver and the tweeter. There is a crossover point, such as on these here. There will be a crossover point somewhere around, who knows what, 1K maybe, 2K? I don't know where it is.
So a device that sends the low frequencies to the bass driver and the high frequencies to the...
And the crossover point is normally where the issues are.
Right.
And the problem with that in a two-way system is that the crossover point is generally right where the vocal sits. And that can be a problem. If you look at a very honest sort of frequency response chart for most monitors, you'll see the anomalies where the crossovers are. Right. So with a three-way system, you have two of those points. It crosses over from the low frequency to the mid and then from the mid to the high.
Double trouble,
but it also gives them the opportunity to shift those frequencies out of the problem areas. And it also means you've got a dedicated driver for each bit of the frequency range. So it should be generally a better, more honest signal that you're getting.
I've got to say, did sound very good. They did sound very good.
They do. I still spend at least half the time on my NS10s. Still. I still find NS10s are so quick. The response time, because it's a closed box, there's no ports. The drivers are really fast, so all the transients are much quicker. So I think I still do half of my mixing on the NS10s, and then I flip to the Dynaudios.
Okay, so here's one for you. This will be controversial.
Go on.
I was looking at your NS10s. You've got them on.
I've got them up the other way at the moment. Yeah.
And you've got your tweeters on the inside.
Yes.
Why?
Honestly,
Yeah.
Couldn't be bothered to move them.
Okay.
They were lying down horizontally like
Yeah.
NS10s normally are, and when I put the lids next to them, I had to stand them up to make room, and I didn't want to flip them over because it just meant picking them up.
Okay.
And I'm having a big change around soon, so I thought I'll do that then.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, that's not quite as
Just me
controversial
being
a
a
point.
little bit lazy, basically.
Yeah. Well, I'm quite taken aback.
But the other thing is that I've reminded myself, and I knew this, but I wasn't doing it. NS10s, when you push them closer together, if you can keep the gap between them really small, they sound loads better. You get that whole sub-coupling thing.
Yeah.
And the bottom end starts to come through.
Well, the idea is, isn't it, with the near fields, it's supposed to be a triangle, isn't it? An equilateral triangle.
Absolutely. So it depends where you're going to be most of the time. And I am sat right at the front staring at the monitor most of the time, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and the lids, I'm sitting back listening to a mix more, so that's a wider image.
Very interesting.
So there you go. That's the news in my studio.
Studio news. So, as well as having these new monitors,
Yeah.
and buying some nice bits of kit, what are you doing with it all?
Well, as you know, a little while ago, well, not a little while ago, a couple of years ago, I was sending out a commercial mix for mastering. This is a big release that was going to be played worldwide, and I've been using one of the world's best mastering engineers for years, and I emailed him and he wasn't available. He was busy, and the label wanted it delivered soon as, so I thought, well, I'll do it then.
You got out your ozone,
I didn't. No, I did it all.
emailed it off for a £5.
I did it mostly in the box. I went outside for my bus compressor and some EQ. I did most of it in the box. I sent it into the label. It got cut to vinyl. It got pressed to CD. It did great. Got played on radio. Absolutely no one questioned it. At which point I thought, hang on, I could do some more of this.
I can do this.
I quite enjoyed doing it. I could do some more. So I've been doing bits and bobs of mastering ever since, the last few years. And for the last 6 months, I've just been picking up more and more. And in the last couple of months, I've started advertising and doing more. And now it's got to the point where I'm doing quite a lot. And so I've just started upgrading stuff a bit to get me to the point where I feel like I'm in a better place to do that. So I'm upgrading the acoustics in the studio. I've got the monitors. I've got some new bits of hardware coming. It's a general upgrade program I'm hoping to keep going for the next year to get to the point where I feel like I have all the tools I need. I'm mostly in the box, but every now and again, like the Gain Lab Dictator has been amazing.
Yeah.
I've got an EQ coming today, which hopefully is going to really help as well. There's a whole bunch of stuff I know I want to use as part of my mastering chain. But, you know, I've got some happy customers now, and hopefully people are going to come back. And I enjoy it. It's a change. It's a change from mixing. Mixing is quite tricky from the point of view of...
You mean it appeals to you because you're lazy?
No, it's just a very different thing. So when you're mixing, you work on a project for quite a long time. Generally, if you're mixing one thing, you'll be mixing the whole album.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Well, I was just going to say, it's a long process and you're stuck working with maybe the same 10 songs for a month or whatever. Whereas with mastering, I probably get 4 different songs a day from different musicians, different acts, different styles of music. It's really interesting.
Well, this is what I was going to say. You're doing quite a lot of this kind of work now, but you don't get as involved in it as you would if you were in other parts of the process. If you were a composer, musician on the track, the engineer, the producer, you know, it especially because you offer different levels, as we've discussed in some other of these episodes.
Yeah.
Some of it's quite quick, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, some people send brilliant mixes which just need bringing to their best. So, you know, a little bit of sculpting of the bottom end sometimes if it's going to cause issues on some playback systems. Maybe it needs to be a little bit brighter, maybe a little bit wider. It's just putting the finishing touches on, and sometimes it is quite an easy job to do, and other times it's really quite difficult. You know, you get some pretty iffy mixes come through, which for whatever reason, you know, you go back, you always give them advice of how they can fix it, but a lot of the time it is what it is. They had a one-off chance to mix it, that's what you've got to make it sound its best.
Well, the stuff you played sounds pretty cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a whole new bit of my career, which I'm...
You know, and you're welcome. My advice, everything louder than everything else.
I know.
Pump.
100%.
Well done.
And some people, that's what they want. Anyway, so that was the news, which means it must be now time for plugin news.
Okay, so just in a bit of hark back to our flagship show, we are going to talk about some plugins, and we're going to start with the Pulsar 8200 or 8200, which is a GML replica. That you've been using a bit, Sean.
Do you know what? The GML I was first introduced to in 1990, I think. I was at my first studio job, and Jeremy Allen was...
I wasn't even in senior school.
Oh, I know. Jeremy Allen, fantastic engineer, was mixing Massive Attack's Blue Lines album, and I was sat there watching him do it, and he asked for a GML EQ to be brought in so that he could use it on the mix. And that's the first time I saw one, and I watched him use it, and I think he ended up using it on quite a few of the tracks. And I sort of, at that point, I was very new to everything. I was only just learning the SSL and stuff like that. So it seemed like, almost a mythical piece of gear at that point. And over the years, I've come to see it all over the place. Every studio I ever worked in generally had one. Rack, where I quite often mix, they've got a couple in there. And they're just fantastic. And I've done things like running guitar buses through them. I've run vocals through them. In fact, one of the first albums I mastered a long time ago, 2006, I mastered through a GML EQ. And it's just a fantastic bit of kit.
And we did the AMEC. We looked at the AMEC, which was a supposed replica.
Yeah, I mean, that was more the Sontec, but it was, they're both similar EQs. They're mastering EQs, built, designed a long time ago. And Pulsar have done a fantastic job of recreating it. It to me, it sounds right. It sounds like a GML. It's got some extra things, so it's got the sub control and it's got the air, and it's got a tilt function, which I think is a brilliant addition. Love the tilt, and it's got the built-in de-esser, and at the moment it's $89.
Yeah,
which I think that is a steal all day.
So there we go. Go check out the Is It Shh review.
Yeah, the Is It Shh review should be up soon, and go into a bit more depth about the Pulsar 8200. So what else are we going to look at?
The other thing that we're going to look at is the Waves Factory EQ on its own without you having to do anything. Oh no.
The Track Spacer.
Track Spacer.
Track Spacer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of the Track Spacer?
Well, it's my job to be sort of critical.
It is.
A little, fortunately, because I'm quite good at it. But I thought it's good. I can see what you talked me into these things. My initial reaction to this sort of stuff is, oh no, bloody, it's like the chord generators and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, a bloody musician. Why do I need one of those? But then you talk me through it, calm me down, give me a lager, and then all of a sudden it all seems like a really good idea.
Yeah.
But I can see that it's going to work in the way it's going to give your mixes space, essentially. It's going to allow you, as we discussed, to put space in your guitars for your vocals.
Yeah, exactly that. You can insert it on anything, even a whole mix, and it will create space. You literally sidechain in whatever it is you need the space for, and it uses an inverse of the EQ of that signal to create a whole.
I would just recommend with plugins like this that if you're going to use it, you go and look at how and why it's working and why you need one of these. Because it's kind. I don't know if is it AI. I guess it's learning, isn't it? I don't know.
I don't know actually.
I don't know what the
No, I don't know what the difference is between AI and something that just.
But
learns.
It's doing something clever, and it's essentially doing something that sound engineers used to do on its own.
Yeah.
So I would recommend that if you do get this and you do start to use it, that you go and learn why.
And I think this is one of those plugins that shows up. We get the odd comment on our Is It Shit show that there's no demo. Why don't you do a demo? Why are there no audio demos? Because I watch loads of audio demos and I'm not sure I learn much from them.
No.
But when I download the demos in order to test the plugins, in order to do the reviews, I learn loads. I learn immediately whether I want to part with my cash, and quite often I do part with my cash because I realise, oh wow, that's really, really
not
doing
like
something.
when you're in the pub.
Not like when you're in the pub. No.
The Waves Factory Track Spacer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a useful plugin, but I think you need to understand why you're using it and what it's doing.
Yeah, it's 100% one of those ones you need to go and try, and you'll see straight away whether that's something that's going to save you a load of time or not. And that's that. But I think it's a cool little invention. I love it. Anyway.
Go.
Okay, so Retro Talk is the bit of the show where we talk about a piece of gear that we've used at some point in our past that maybe we don't use, well, we definitely don't use anymore, we don't have anymore, and we miss it, and we sort of say why we miss it.
Well, that's what your Retro Talk is.
Okay, that's not yours.
No. No, don't impress me, Sean.
I'm not oppressing you, Dan.
Again. Keep being impressed. So I think we need to talk about kit that has been used in the past.
Yep.
But I don't think we need to restrict it to that we've owned. Well,
Okay.
You can, but you're not going to restrict me.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's cool. Let's go our own way on this one, Dan. You're always going your own way, normally towards the pub.
Yes.
Right, come on in.
The chip shop.
What is it?
Well, I've not seen an SM57 for a while.
An old school.
An old school,
SM57.
yeah. When I was at university, one of the assignments we were given was to make a whole recording with just an SM57s.
That's easy enough. It's a good mic.
It's a great mic.
Yeah.
You taught me something about an SM57 and an SM58. What's the difference between the two?
Not a lot. You just take the basket off the 58 and it's pretty much a
An
57.
SM57, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was a time when you'd see a mic kit, there'd be a 57, there'd be a Unidyne.
I used to have a Unidyne 57 until I stupidly sold it.
Yeah. With the cord off the bottom, off the back.
No, this one had an XLR socket in the bottom, but I think it was in that there was a particular sort of sweet spot for 57s where they still said Unidyne 57 on them, but they had the XLR, port in the bottom. It sounded epic on snare drums. I used to take it everywhere. No other 57 sounded like it, and I got a bit skinned and I sold it.
Yeah. Well, I've done that with all of my mics. But in the nowadays with your Aston, Aston make great microphones. Your Aston and your Neumann clip-ons and your trusty 57. I think is often forgotten.
Do you know what? It's so versatile. Well, do you remember we were doing ADR for a movie?
I do remember doing ADR for a movie.
Quite a long time, and we did most of that down a 57
Yeah.
after trying some really expensive mics.
Yeah.
That sounded the best.
Well, there was a certain very influential and ultra cool hip hop track that you mentioned earlier.
Ah,
Hip
yeah.
hop album.
So MC Hammer,
Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Them.
yeah, You Can't Touch This. All of that rap was done down a 57. And when you listen to it, it's got such a presence and a real bite to it. I think that was produced by a guy called Felton Pilot, and he was so clever in getting that sound together. In that it was just, if you listen to it now, it's still like epic.
You see, there's something about recording vocals in a studio, especially with aggressive music or aggressive vocalists, and having them hold the mic in their hand.
Yeah.
There is a certain, you catch a certain element of performance doing that.
I think that's very true. I think you get a very weird performance when a vocalist for the first time goes into a vocal booth and there's a U87 hung just slightly above their nose in front of them, and they have to look up and sing into it, and they can't get involved with it. You get a completely different performance. And for some vocalists that really works, but for others it puts them in a very weird place and you can't get the performance out of them.
So I've got to say, live, I would put anything on a snare drum that had a clip on it to save me setting up another stand.
Gotcha.
And in the studio, would you choose a 57 as your snare mic?
Yeah. Snare top, I'd still have a 57.
Would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think now I'd probably use a Beta 57 just because I've been using them for a long time. I've got used to it. Mm-hmm. But an SM57's got an amazing sound, yeah.
Well, there you go. That's my bit of retro talk.
SM57.
SM57, yeah. Just
Blimey.
hadn't seen one in a while. There's always something better.
Very true. Okay, well, my piece of gear is not quite that old, but isn't far off. And it was the mixing desk that was in the second studio I worked at, which was a place called Psychoactive Studios. And it was a Studio Master Mixdown 16.8, 16.2. And in those days, everyone was starting to work on what were called inline consoles, which is like the SSL. So in one channel strip, you have not only all the signal going to tape, but the signal coming back from tape comes back on the mini fader, and it's all in the same place. And you can flip it. You can have the return coming back on the main fader. The Studio Master was old school in that there was a separate monitoring section, a bit like the old API at rack. So there's all your inputs there, 16, and then there's your 8 returns.
I
there.
like that.
It's kind of cool because you had a completely separate section to set up your monitor mix, and then in
You don't get
Mixdown,
all confused when you're drunk.
you don't get all confused. Generally, shouldn't be drunk in
You're on
the
the wrong
studio.
side. It's like driving.
It was interesting because two of us, we worked there together, and one of us would be dealing with the inputs to tape, the other one would be dealing with the monitor mix going to the band. And it meant you could sit on different sides of the board. Although at the time, when I first worked on it, I was massively underwhelmed because I'd just come from SSL and then went to this smaller project studio that had a Studio Master, which, I think SSLs at the time were about 150 grand and the Studio Master was about $1,000. So
Bit of a step down.
I felt like it was a massive step down. It was only years later I realised how good they were. That British EQ was actually really very nice. They were pretty quiet. It was a really nice sounding desk.
What did you record onto?
To begin with, a Fostex R8 analog 8-track reel-to-reel. Then we upgraded to a Fostex E16, 16-track half-inch reel-to-reel. And I think, that was it. By the time that went, I think that was it for that studio. We only existed in the analog domain. The next
Been downhill ever since.
downhill ever since. I mean, literally, I went from there to a hard disk recorder, which was a Roland. I think years later.
Radar. Do you remember that? That was.
I do remember Radar. Radar was where I went after analog tape for a while. Radar was great.
Yeah.
Rock solid. You could do some editing, not loads, but you could reverse things and cut and paste things.
It was It was like. Well, it was like MP3s. Well, it was like file sharing. It's one of those things where you've been working on tape, somebody showed you a hard disk, and you're like, I can't believe this.
Yeah. Oh, it was
I can't
amazing.
believe this is a thing.
Well, and it was so clean, and there was no noise, and like in those days, everyone was loving it, and now we're not liking the no noise.
Yeah. Now check out all of our tape saturation plugins.
Exactly
for
that.
hundreds of pounds.
There you go. So that was
Retro
Talk.
Retro Talk.
Retro Talk, even.
It's Hot Topic. Today's Hot Topic. We're gonna go deep. How deep? Well, I don't know. I guess we'll just see how deep it goes.
All right, Dan. So what is today's hot topic?
The hot topic. I'm not sure how hot it is.
No, it's not
But,
hot. It's a very cold topic.
Yeah. People have asked us, what you're doing in our shed and where are your trousers?
Have they?
Oh, no, sorry.
Didn't think
They've
anyone knew.
asked us. What have they asked us?
They want to know how we met.
And what do we do?
And what do we do? How do we know
Yeah.
each other? How did
We
this
met each other
happen?
in a bar and we don't do a lot. So, thanks for joining us.
Ain't far off.
It's not. Okay, so where did we meet, Sean?
I think, and I can't remember exactly when it was, but
No.
I think you were young. You were like 17 or something.
I
Dave.
was, yeah.
I was maybe, 25. I'd been asked by a company called Transmedia, I think they were called, to
They were, yeah.
engineer front of house for a stage at Olympia. It was Future Publishing, who do future music, computer music, and at the time they did a magazine called The Mix as well, recording
Rhythm
magazine.
magazine.
Rhythm magazine as well. Yeah, they were putting on this big thing down at Olympia, and I was mixing the stage where, well, they just had all kinds of bands coming and going. It was non-stop all day. And I got the gig because they wanted someone who could mix front of house using a Yamaha O2R, the digital desk, which at the time,
Cutting edge, mate.
it was. At the time, no one really knew how to use them. And I completely lied and said I used one all the time when I'd never seen one. But I did read the manual the night before. And then when I got there, you were there and you were mixing in one of the drum, was it like a drum clinic room?
Yeah, I did the rhythm room. And you know, that weekend I did Kieran Pepper from The Prodigy, but I did Chad Smith.
I remember that because
Yeah.
he went and did a performance in the main arena.
Yeah.
And I was helping to set up Chad Smith's drum kit, and Brian May was playing guitar. And I remember being on stage with Chad Smith and Brian May and
yeah.
thinking, "Ooh,
Yeah.
that's a weird day." And Chad Smith plays drums in bare feet.
Yeah.
It was all a bit weird.
Yeah, it was all a bit.
I've still
yeah.
got his sticks.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So yeah, we met there, didn't we? And I remember a conversation very vividly, and I didn't know you at all at this point. And you were using an analog desk, and you were asking me something about sending from an auxiliary, and I was trying to talk you through it. And then you said to me that you'd only ever set that up on a digital desk.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I was wanting to set up a stereo compressor across a drum bus,
Ah, okay.
and I'd only ever done it
Yep.
on the desk because you were using my O2R.
Yeah. It was so weird. It was like you knew digital, but you didn't know analog.
Yeah.
And it was like,
Yeah.
I'd been using just analog and had lied my way into getting a gig with a digital desk.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand that someone had not used analog on the way to digital.
Well, I'd only been there a few months. But like you, I've always been a good blagger. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, and we met. What I remember is that we were drinking a drink called Jaffa Cakes.
What?
Yeah, Tia Maria and
my God. I don't remember
what's
that.
the orange liqueur
I have no idea. Where were we doing that?
in the bar? That's where we met. And you were going, "We're going to set up a record label."
We
And
did.
we did. I know we did. Yeah. And you went, "It's all going to be brilliant. Have you ever heard of the KLF? Have you ever heard of the KLF?"
Oh, that was where
Yeah.
it all started.
It
That was
was.
where I talked you into being a KLF fan, and we did set up a record label.
We did set up a record label. Yeah.
I didn't know that had
It was
gone
it was
in my
that
head that
soon.
early.
Yeah, you sort of selected me. It was like some sort of weird. Yeah.
Well, I do remember I didn't see you for a bit after that, and then I got a gig mixing for Red Bull. I was touring. Do you remember I did it
the
with Oki?
stages, yeah.
We were going on tour with Red Bull, and it was all the
skate
world's
ramp.
best skaters and BMXers, and we were just doing a PA for it. And I don't know where Rocky was. He wasn't around one day, and you came to do his job for him. And I think that's where we talked a bit more and
Yeah.
solidified the plan.
Yeah. And then you'd got the studio. I came over to, you'd got a studio in somebody's house because you got the job with Future Music writing reviews then, didn't you?
I got that at that gig.
At that gig.
Yeah.
And then I remembered that the next time I actually came to see you was you were like, "Yeah, I've got studio. Not telling me it was in your mate's spare room.
It was in my mate's spare room.
Yeah, but you just got the TLA.
I just got a finalizer.
No, it was the desk.
Oh, I got the TLA desk. I
Yeah.
did. I got the VTC
And we're like
desk.
sat in this like box room, and the desk we're like that, like the faders are here. Like,
Do you remember where that desk ended up? Blur came to get it.
did they?
Blur came round my mate's house to get the desk off me. I'd been lent it by TLA to review.
Yeah.
And they sold it to Blur. And it ended up recording all that stuff, the Gorilla stuff.
Did it?
That exact desk. Yeah.
There you go.
Weird, eh?
There you go. Yeah. So the finalizer was TC Electronics.
Yeah, I remember that. That was the first review I ever did, was the TC Electronic Finalizer 96K.
Yeah, we put basically. I spent 5 years putting everything through that.
I think everybody did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember.
They reference it in that Oasis documentary, don't they? That the Welsh fella. Basically, we've got this digital box. It makes everything louder than everything else. We thought, fuck it, we'll just put everything through that.
It was a magic bit.
That's
of
what
zero.
everybody was doing.
Everybody was doing it. Yeah.
And so then you did eventually start that record label.
We did, yeah. Me, you, and Rick started a label, which, I mean, that was bad timing. We started a record label the same year that the record industry fell apart, really.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah.
other labels were going bust, and we
Yeah.
jumped in the last minute,
We
just
did,
in
yeah.
time
Yeah.
to go bust with them.
Yeah, I know. Everybody, what the MP3s, they're going to be gone. They're going to be gone. Let's press some CDs, Sean.
Yeah.
Let's
We
press
sold
some
them all.
We did sell them all.
We sold
Yeah.
them all. Yeah.
So we went off on tour together.
We did a
So we sat in this
European tour, didn't we?
yeah, we got this really glamorous studio on this industrial estate in a high-rise block called Caxton Point.
It was, yeah.
you and Rick had studios, didn't you?
We did, yeah.
And we were sat there and we made a couple of records and what have you. And then Sean phoned me one day and he's like, Kim's going on tour. And that was it. We went off. There was a band put together.
Yeah, all happened quite quick.
It did.
We
And
dis-
it was back in the day where you had analog consoles. You were doing all these big European festivals. You had analog consoles front and back. And I don't know, those of you that know Sean, he likes a white glove.
I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah. So
do you
Sean's like, he says to me, don't lift anything because it'll make me look bad. Okay.
It's true.
So we're basically turning up to the stage about 40 minutes before the band go on, dialing in the stuff on these Heritage 3000s, these big analog mixing desks, into wedges and big PA systems. The band come on, they start the first song, monitors, the mix is fine. Sean and I were back in the bar before the band got there.
I mean, it was a bad gig if I wasn't in the bar before the band.
And yeah, we did that for a good couple of years, didn't we? We went all around Europe, club tours, festivals.
Went all over the place. Did loads and loads of gigs. Yeah, and then we just we kept doing the same thing, but not together. You went off on a different tour. I went off doing other tours. We sort of did parallel careers for a bit, and then you got into doing the education thing.
Mm-hmm.
Did very well at that, and that's what you've been doing up till fairly recently.
Yeah,
I've been doing more of the same, really. I did a lot of live touring up until fairly recently, and then I started a management company, started managing artists, and then deciding I wanted to be at home more and started doing more mixing and mastering stuff. And then
and then we thought I got roped into starting a dodgy YouTube channel. And so here we are. And there
you go.
Yeah,
that's the history of how we know each other.
There's been lots of shits and giggles along the way.
There has, yeah. It's fun. It's fun when you meet someone that you do the same work as, and you get on, and you can work together sometimes. And it's not many people want to talk about what we do. No. I know you lot out there probably enjoy this because this is what you do. But generally in life, you start talking to your mate who works in an office about your job, they're not interested.
No,
I've no idea what you're talking about. So it's good to know someone that knows what you're talking about. Anyway, that was today's Hot Topic.
Hot Topic.
And that is the end of this episode of Studio Life. We will see you again next time.
Rock on.
See you later.